360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Jonathan Mosley and Rick Trader. And if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show at 9 p.m. this evening, log on to vigilantlibertyradio.us. And at 5 p.m. when our live broadcast ends, if you'd like to hear a repeat of yesterday's show, log on to cprworldwidemedia.com. Our next guest is with us, and she is Dr. Elizabeth Lee Vliet. The doctor is the 2007 recipient of the Voice of Woman Award from the Arizona Foundation for Women. She has appeared on Fox News, Cavuto, Stuart Varney, Fox and Friends, and syndicated radio shows across the country addressing the economic and medical impact of Obamacare. Dr. Vliet, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. Great to have you.
Thanks so much for having me back, Rick. I always enjoy being with you. You guys are doing a great job.
Well, we always enjoy having you on, Doctor. And we've asked you to join us today to talk about your latest article, Illegal Immigrants Bring Risk of Ebola and Global Array of Viral Illnesses. Now, Doctor, what are the chances, other than the well-publicized cases of a doctor and a nurse being brought to the United States who were known to have Ebola, that others could possibly be affected by the Ebola virus, have already passed through our borders undetected?
Well, I think, Rick, that the odds of that are actually much higher than most people realize. I want to share with you a leaked intelligence analysis from the Customs and Border Protection, which revealed actually the exact numbers of illegal immigrants entering and attempting to enter the U.S. from more than 75 different countries. And this report was obtained on the condition of anonymity from within the Customs and Border Patrol Agency, leaked the document and spoke with Breitbart, Texas, and the report is labeled unclassified for official use only. It contains data that should be handled as, quote, sensitive but unclassified, end quote. Now, the reason I want to focus on that is that just came out yesterday. And I was given a copy. 71 individuals from the 3 nations affected by the current Ebola outbreak have either turned themselves in or been caught attempting to illegally enter the U.S. by U.S. authorities between January 24th and January 2014, I'm talking too fast, and July 2014. Now, that's what they know about. And my contacts within the Border Patrol have said over and over for the last 5 years or longer that we're only catching anywhere from 3 to 5% of what's really coming across the border. So if they know of 71 individuals from the 3 nations that currently have the Ebola outbreak in the time frame of the outbreak, then the odds are very good that Ebola could have already come across the border. No one knows for sure because information is suppressed. One of the things, and you have a guest coming on later who is a colleague and good friend, Zach Taylor, the chairman of NOFCO, and you'll have him on later to confirm some of what I'm describing. Right. But he and I discussed the fact that when I got back to the U.S. from South America the end of June, they had several very, very ill illegals that had been apprehended in Texas that were suddenly whisked off to an undisclosed location with an undisclosed illness. Then, shortly after that, and they were so ill that really everyone was quite aware they were in respiratory distress, they had high fever, they were shaking and coughing up blood. Then, a couple of weeks after that, ABC News broke the story that very ill illegals were flown from Texas to the Ventura Naval Base in California, and several of those people were so ill they were taken to an intensive care unit. Same symptoms: high fever, shaking, chills, respiratory difficulties, and coughing up blood. Now, the reason that that's significant is that those are some of the early symptoms of Ebola or dengue, hemorrhagic fever, or other of the severe viral syndromes. Not so characteristic for tuberculosis to be that severe in the early phase of its disease process, although they said they suspected tuberculosis. The reason I bring this up is that the information being given to the public is not making sense, and much of it is being suppressed, with both Border Patrol, Department of Homeland Security, and medical professionals being threatened with arrest or prosecution if they speak accurately about what they're seeing. And the other thing you may not know about is that just last Thursday night, July 31st, in the evening, the Inspector General report for the Department of Homeland Security was also released quietly. And in that report, they documented exactly what I've been writing about since early June, that the Border Patrol and the illegals and Border Patrol family members and Department of Homeland Security agents and family members have been diagnosed with viral illnesses, tuberculosis, lice, scabies, and chickenpox, which have been transmitted to the agents' families. So the information is there, and they know it's there, and it's being suppressed for the public. And yet when I bring up these issues and talk about the risk of dispersing all of these people across the country without knowing where they're coming from and what they have and how sick they might be, and risking exposure for the rest of the population, local doctors and other people and people on the left have said, well, I'm just being an alarmist. No, I don't think so, because what we've got in this recent report from the intelligence service of the Customs and Border Patrol office is that they've had close to 250 individuals from Pakistan. They've had Egyptians, Yemen, Somalia, China. I mean, they're on this list. There are 1,443 individuals from China were caught sneaking across the border, and another 1,803 turned themselves in to the U.S. authorities. So you're looking at 3,200 illegals from China. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is such a different pattern from what we've seen. I've lived in Arizona.
Doctor, we're going to have to go to a break. Could you hold for just 2 minutes?
Certainly. Okay,
now on the other side of the break, let's get into why it's important that we know where these people are coming from and what possible threats they could be bringing with them from their home countries. Okay?
Okay.
And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Jonathan Mosley and Rick Trader, coming to you from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, and around the world on the internet. Don't forget, you can hear our show anytime, day or night, from any telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Please don't go away. On the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Dr. Elizabeth Lee Vliet.
They say I'm crazy, I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I... Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Jonathan Mosley and Rick Trader. And our guest this segment is Dr. Elizabeth Lee Vliet. And we're discussing with Dr. Vliet the risk of Ebola and a global array of viral illnesses coming across our border. Doctor, thanks for holding through that break. We really do appreciate your time.
You're welcome. You're certainly welcome.
Doctor, before we went to the break, you were talking about how there are not just people coming from Mexico or Central and South America coming across our border, that there are people coming from India and Pakistan, China, and as well as Mexico. Tell our audience why it is important that we know where these people are coming from and what possibly they might be bringing with them.
Well, the bigger concern, I think, is the fact that they've identified so many illegal border crossers from countries known to sponsor terrorism. Yemen and Somalia, for example, are two well-known ones. Pakistan is another. Egyptians were caught sneaking across the border in our southern borders as well. So you're looking at the issue of people with not the motivation to just find a job, which is what has been ascribed to the Mexican illegal border crossers over the years I've lived in Arizona. But you're also looking at people who may be coming with other purposes in mind from countries that clearly have an agenda to harm America. The Border Patrol organizations have been speaking about this risk for years, and so have some of the military people as well. In addition, they are bringing the risk of exposure to diseases that the U.S. has eradicated or controlled effectively in the past. And that is another concern. Ebola is one of many that I listed in the article, which came out on WND Sunday and Monday. So people can go and look at the article for more information on that. The other thing that I find alarming as a physician is the degree to which we are getting reassurances that there's no risk to the American public of Ebola. And you see the images on television of the two patients with known Ebola being flown to Emory and coming in hazmat suits.
Doctor,
that's one aspect, but the people across the border, the illegals, we don't know what they have, and they're not protected in hazmat suits.
Doctor, I wanted to ask you this question. What does your wisdom, experience, and education tell you about the decision to bring people who are known to be suffering from Ebola into our country for treatment?
Well, my my statement publicly has been, I thought it was risky to the patients and to the public. And it would be, from a cost-benefit standpoint, it also made sense to treat them on site with the portable decontamination units that they have available, rather than risking the transport and the flight crew and all of the other people and exposure to patients here. There is a lot still that is not known with certainty about how Ebola is transmitted. There are studies from Canada that suggest that there is the possibility of aerosol transmission. It has not been conclusively determined for human beings, but the problem is we don't know. The second issue is that it doesn't make sense, based upon saying there's no airborne or aerosol transmission, with people in West Africa, when we've had over 100 medical professionals working that outbreak in protective gear who've been ill and some have died. So to me, it raises a lot of serious questions that I don't think are being taken seriously. If people want to read, I have tweeted this out. People can follow me on Twitter at Health and Sense. The Canadian Public Health Advisory for Ebola has much more evidence of caution about the possibility of aerosol or airborne transmission than what we heard from the CDC director on Fox News on Sunday. So I think there are a lot of questions.
Doctor, there was a report that a doctor over in West Africa who treated patients while dressed in a hazmat suit actually got Ebola and died. How is it transmitted? How contagious is this disease?
Well, in contact with the bodily secretions, and remember, lung secretions coughed up and coughed on people can be bodily secretions too. The studies have shown that it only takes as few as 10 viral particles to initiate an infection. And one of the sites of infection is skin cells. So you have to be exceptionally and exquisitely careful with the protective gear in order to avoid being infected. And it doesn't take many organisms to initiate an infection. That's the concern. There are so many unanswered questions, and there's the whole issue of what has come across our borders with the people that were very ill, that no one is told where they were taken and what illness they had. And yet we know from reports in the Congressional Record and reports on the CDC website that they began in April planning 20 quarantine centers across the U.S. in major cities. And there was a request in the Congressional Record to provide Ebola bio kits to the National Guard units in all 50 states. So there's a disconnect. I want your listeners to think about the fact that there's a disconnect between preparations going on quietly versus what is said publicly. And people need to be aware. We don't withhold information about hurricanes or tornadoes or wildfires. We try to protect the public and say, here's what we think is coming, here's where we think it's going to hit, here's what the time frame is, here's what you need to do. It's just common sense. It's prevention 101. Well,
common sense is something that it seems like our government and this administration is lacking. Our guest this segment is Dr. Elizabeth Lee Vliet, and on the other line I do have my co-host John Mosley with us. And John, I think that maybe 100 years ago or so, when we had a large population of immigrants coming into this country, our government at that time had quarantined a lot of them at Ellis Island. John?
Yeah, I was going to ask about the comparison because I think maybe we're talking about more serious illnesses. Ellis Island, I guess if I were trying to design the perfect thing, maybe it's rather close to a population area. But how do you see this as being substantially different? between what we did in the past and what worked and what's happening now from a success standpoint in dealing with.
Well, it's a good question, John. There's absolutely no comparison at all. Ellis Island, and actually I know that story very well because I actually am a 2014 Ellis Island Medal of Honor recipient for my work in medicine, and that Ellis Island celebrates the contributions of legal immigrants to the United States who came through the process. Their backgrounds, their medical history, their medical condition was screened very carefully, and they went through the legal process, and we celebrate all of the contributions that the legal immigrants have made to the greatness of our nation. And they're from all ethnic backgrounds. That's the whole purpose of the Ellis Island National Ethnic Coalition of Organizations, is that we celebrate that. What's happening on our southern border is a totally uncontrolled flood of people from 75 countries around the world, 75% of them from countries other than Mexico, who are 80% over age 14 and male. So it's not the population of young children and mothers as is presented in the mainstream media. The reality at the border, according to the Border Patrol agencies, is that we're looking at mostly young adult male over age 14, a lot of gang members, a lot of criminal activity, a lot of gang recruiting, and people that are very sick. There were 89 cases of tuberculosis identified at the New Mexico Center that just last week closed down for quarantine. All they reported to the public was 2 cases of chickenpox.
Hey, doctor, we're going to have to end our conversation with you in a couple of minutes, but I do have 2 quick questions I want to get in, and then I want to give you an opportunity for you to tell our listeners how they can follow you. One, what can we do? What can we do to protect ourselves?
Well, I think people need to check in with their local primary care doctors, make sure your vaccinations are up to date, make sure you've been checked to see if you have TB, get a skin test. It should be negative, and if it changes to positive, then you need to be monitored. I think people need to be scrupulously careful about hygiene, hand washing, and hand sanitation. Mm-hmm. And if you have symptoms of fever, coughing, respiratory problems, body aches, even though you may think it's a cold or a flu, it would be good to check with your primary.
Doctor, we only got about 30 seconds, and I do have one more question I have to ask. On your website, is that you sitting in that jet, and what's that about?
I took some aerobatic flights for a big birthday.
Are you a pilot?
I'm not a licensed pilot. I've had flying lessons.
All right, because I'm a plane crazy kind of guy. Hey, Doctor, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the Conservative Commandos radio show. Tell our listeners how to follow you.
Follow me on Twitter at health and ANDCNTS. I'm posting updates daily as we get information. So tune in and spread the word.
Dr. Elizabeth Lee Vliet, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the Conservative Commandos radio show. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks so much to both of you. Have a great day.
Take care. God bless. We're going to take a break. Please don't go away. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with Zach Taylor, who is the chairman of the National Association of Former Border Patrol Officers, here on the Conservative Commandos radio show.
That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty.
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions. We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
You know, no one exposes the issues, liberalism, and the mainstream media like the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Our view for conservative values and issues, take positive action to restore them in our country.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers.
– 9/11. It's a day that will go down in our history as the most horrific and destructive scene ever to happen on American soil. It will also be, for most Americans who witnessed it either up close or simply watched in horror on TV, America to participate in a national memorial